in all probability, somewhere in your life, someone has tried to use a little emotional blackmail technique called guilt tripping. And they've tried to get you to do what they want with a guilt trip. If you loved me, you would do this. Don't you care about me? I want you to do this. I deserve it. Whatever. They try all kinds of different things. Whenever you're disempowered and you're not clear and articulate about what you want, and you're not able to communicate it effectively in the individual that you would like to do it, their values, then you sometimes, because you're not able to communicate effectively where they get it and want to do it, you use emotional blackmailing techniques and guilt trips in order to try to manipulate them to get it done. And in some cases, some people respond to that. And of course, if they have, and you escalate that until they do respond, then you'll continue on that path, and you probably use that over and over again because it keeps working. Some people respond to it because they don't want to see the drama. They don't want to deal with your reaction, so they just give in and just do it. But that's not inspiring for them. I had a woman in my life say that once to me. It was my mother, and she wanted me to do a certain thing, and she tried a bit of that, and I said, Mom, the way you approach that, I just want to let you know, this is how I experienced that. And she stopped and she said, well, that's not what I intended. I said, I just want to let you know that's how it was experienced. And is there any other way you can approach that or ask me that makes it more appealing for me? Because it almost pushes me further into doing what you don't want me to do, the way you've approached it. I had a conversation with her about it, and it made a difference. So sometimes having conversation and getting on the table and not letting their technique run you can be useful. But if they don't, you'll probably just eventually withdraw from having to deal with that because you don't want to deal with it. It's just annoying. So I think it's wise to go and give them feedback, let them know that approach, let's try a different approach. Maybe have some conversations about how to get that same outcome, different approach. May not work, but at least got no harm in asking. But just know that people that are somewhat disempowered and don't have a way of communicating effectively what they want in terms of the people they want something done in's values, they will try that. It's a strategy. And in some cases it works. If a child, for instance, when it's very young, throws a tantrum in order to get what they want, to get out of doing something or to get something they want, and the parents don't want to deal with the drama and they just give in and do it, the child gets programmed, well, that's the strategy that works. And if you allow them to use that emotional blackmail technique over and over again and that guilt tripping, then they'll probably continue to do it. So my advice is to sit down and have a conversation with them and tell them that it's what you're asking, here's the reasons why it's not feasible for me to do that, or here's how to present it in a way that is inviting for me to want to do it, and open up a conversation, see if you can do reasonably. If they're not going to be reasonable about it and they're just going to use it, you're probably going to just withdraw from them and say thank you, but no thank you. When you respect me and communicate more effectively with me, I'll respond, but I'm not going to respond with that approach. Try another approach. Because some people don't have another approach. They've never been trained. But sometimes giving them feedback makes them have to learn to try alternative approaches. If you just communicate. I had a gentleman who came to my program in Sydney, Australia, and he had his son was labeled defiant, disorder. I love that. And so we had a conversation how to communicate with his son, and the son was coming up with responses, and he was using emotional blackmails and threats on his son and stuff like that. We learned what his values the values were, and we practiced communicating with it. And he brought the son to the next time I spoke there in Sydney. And it was a day and night thing when he did that. So because he didn't have any other strategies, that's what strategy worked. So if we reward that strategy, it'll continue. if we come up with alternative and give them feedback about how we would like to be approached and how it would be effective and how we feel when we do it the other way, they might try an alternative. If they're just absolutely refusing to do that, you may just say, as I've seen a really effective approach with a woman one time with her kids, says, when you choose to respond in a respectful manner, I will help you get what you want. So go back and think about how you're approaching and try an alternative approach. If you want some advice on how to approach that, let me know. And they did. And I was amazed at the impact it had by having a dialogue. So don't be afraid to have a dialogue about what it's like to be on the other end of that approach, and try to give them some options and maybe educate them about that, and realize that some people don't have a lot of options. They've just had few experiences, and whatever's, if they've used drama in order to get what they want, it's worked, and people just run and rescue them and disable them and enable them, then, they're going to continue with that. So if you don't want to be treated that way, move on. If you want, or communicate and try to get them to try alternatives. Speak up, educate, share with it, and then also look and reflect and see if you're doing the same thing. If you're doing that, it's a lesson for both people.